Get ready
for a great show.
Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, I'm George Middleton.
And I'm Lamar Penny Finley.
Your host this evening on this podcast episode of Black Space
Live.
For the topic of our discussion today, we're going to discuss the case of the woman who ordered her 14-year-old son to shoot a man. However, before we get started, we would like to briefly take this time to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. In other words, don't
be selfish
with
this content.
Share
the love.
You can catch Black Space live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and Spotify. And you can catch us on Anchor FM, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio.
Let's introduce our panelists for today. Panelists, please take a moment to introduce yourselves and tell them anything you would like to know about you. We'll start with you, Tashi.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
But you got froze right at the good part.
Yeah, right at the good part. We'll have to come back to Tashi. Zuri.
Hey everybody, it's Zuri. I don't ever really have too much to say.
Hey, you got
it to the point.
While Tasha's getting it together. Come on, you know how it works.
Is it getting slow or do I sound slow?
No. You're Tasha.
Oh, okay. I said, me, my introduction. I was just saying today that I was like, I need to work on an introduction.
Zuri, your background is quite interesting. What is this background thing going on you got here?
I'm in my car because where I'm at, it's not quiet in the background, and we're getting ready to leave. So
you getting ready?
Huh?
You getting ready to leave?
To the Essence Festival.
Oh, nice. Okay. I see we got Tasha back.
Good evening. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, but I did go and grab my backup MiFi, so hopefully it won't happen again. Hello, I'm Tashi, and I am a wonderful, loving, sweetest, angelic woman of God from New York, and I currently live in Atlanta, and that's pretty much it about me.
Atlanta.
And welcome, Tashi.
That's right. Thank you. Good to be here.
So tonight we're going to have a discussion about the incident in Chicago. For the viewers that aren't familiar, earlier this month, according to reports, I always have to put this, according to reports, and allegedly, let's just get that out of the way. According to reports, a woman went into a food establishment in the south side of Chicago. She got into a verbal argument with a gentleman in line. Apparently, the gentleman was there with his girlfriend. Allegedly, the girlfriend was egging the gentleman on after he bumped in line. The gentleman and the woman got into a confrontation. The girlfriend was egging the guy on. Things got a little heated. Allegedly, the mom who was in line was texting her son to come in with the gun. The son came in, stood by the door, and this is all on surveillance tape. Stood by the door. The verbal altercation turned physical. The man hit the woman twice in the face, closed fist. The son saw this, pulled the gun, shot the man in the back. After he shot the man in the back that hit his mom, the man who was shot fled the restaurant. The son followed the man out of the restaurant, shot him 2 more times, killing him. Allegedly, the mom then told the son to shoot the girlfriend who was egging the now deceased man on. The two then got in their car, fled. They turned themselves in a couple of days later, facing murder charges. Well, a few days after that, the murder charges were dismissed on both the 14-year-old boy and the mom. Now, the mom is suing Cook County for malicious prosecution and a few other things. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. The title of tonight's show is defend Black women at all costs. And I want to set it up because a lot of the conversation around this is that the young boy did the right thing. He was well within his rights to do that, and I'm glad he got off. This is the right thing to do. And some people have blamed the mom for bringing him into the store. Others, are blaming the man for putting his hands on the mom. Others are even blaming the man's girlfriend for egging him on to even put his hands on the woman. There's a lot going backwards and forwards. And to be clear, a lot of legal folks, including a lot of law enforcement people, are clear that this young man, at least by the legal standard, broke the law. So, Tashi, I'm going to kick it off with you. What are your overall thoughts? I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously anything. How are your thoughts about the overall outcome of the case?
So from all the conversations that I've had, apparently my perspectives are surprising to the people that know me, but I'm in full support of mom and son. I believe firmly that if no one else knows, my love for the Black community. I love my people. I love my people and I love my people hard. I love my community. That said, I've long been of the belief that the Black community needs to do a better job at expelling bad actors. When we have people that are harmful to the community, harmful to our most vulnerable, our women, our children, our elders, we need to expel them from the community. That doesn't mean obviously walk around killing folks randomly, but it does mean that we should not embrace them. We should not defend them, and maybe even not mourn over their passing. I think he signed up for smoke and he got it.
So even if expelling means to kill, you're cool with killing bad actors, even if
I'm not cool with go ahead. Sorry.
Even if legally speaking, the action wouldn't have warranted death.
Yeah, no. So I was going to clarify. I'm not okay with a lawless society. I'm not okay with our people going around killing each other because somebody may have done something wrong. That's not what I'm definitely not okay with that. I would say that I would draw the line at reasonable law. Given what I know about this case, obviously I wasn't there. I haven't read all of the police reports and everything else. I've read articles and I've read a ton of articles and a lot of commentary, testimony from Ms. Hood's sister and some other family members. Given all that I've read, I believe that the young man was in the right. I believe that he was a hero to the Black community. I believe he protected his mama in a way that I want to see all Black men protecting women.
Okay, I'm going to put a pin in that to give Zuri a chance to chime in. Zuri, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of like on both sides with it, but at the end of the day, when I look at everything that's going on, I think everybody that was involved in the situation was ignorant, because I think the whole situation could have been de-escalated, or it could have turned out totally different than what ended up truly happening. As I think there's just so many factors that go into it, and even the part like she said, like when you said she ordered, or like I said, I've read a lot of articles on it as well. Like I said, it's a lot of things going on in there, and I just feel like the the whole situation couldn't happen if everybody could have just she could have just like kind of been quiet, and the total situation would have been changed, most definitely.
So, Tashi, you said that you felt he was justified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Illinois does not have stand your ground, meaning that stand your ground gives you the right to essentially you don't have a right you don't have a duty to retreat in stand your ground states. And in every other state, self-defense, and Illinois makes an exception, right? If the threat is imminent, you don't have a duty to retreat. Once that threat is no longer imminent, you have a duty to retreat. And let me clarify the term duty to retreat, because a lot of people interpret that like uh, uh, goodness grievances. They're literally the duty to retreat essentially means in layman's terms to escalate. You have an opportunity to walk away, you walk away. If you have opportunity to flee, you flee. If you have opportunity to just kind of calm things down, you calm things down. Once the threat is no longer, but if the threat is imminent, obviously you take action. And if you look at the video, once the threat was shot in the back, he fled the restaurant. At that point, he was no longer a threat. When the young man followed him out of the restaurant and shot him twice, that is when the line was crossed. And I caution especially the Black community from celebrating this, because this was a one-off. I'm grateful because I don't like to see young men going to prison and throwing their lives away, to be clear. But at that point, once the guy ran out of the restaurant, you don't go after him because he's no longer a threat. And I don't believe in us taking chances with the legal system. I think that we dodged a major bullet, no pun intended. No pun intended.
I don't think it's over yet.
I agree with Zuri, and I agree with you, Penny. I don't think it's over yet. I agree that we dodged a bullet. I don't want to see any more of our Black men or women subject to the legal system on the defendant's side. That's not what I want, ever. However, I give grace for the fact that this was a 14-year-old. I don't believe that he was wise enough or mature enough to really process what is the right thing to do in this moment. I think he saw his mom being threatened physically, and he reacted in the way that boys react when it comes to their moms. I mean, I just don't. But before I go any further, though, I meant to say this in my introduction. My opinions do not represent my name. Speaking for myself and just me. I just want to put that out there to be clear. It's not something that makes someone upset. But yeah, I agree that it shouldn't have gone that way in the first place. One of the conversations I had yesterday was around, and my friends disagree with me, around the fact that I think that she should have walked away from the beginning. What I do, I don't like, I'm funny about energy. If the energy is off, I don't care how hungry I am. I don't care how much I want that slice of pizza or whatever it is. I could be in the middle of buying, making purchase something. If I see wrong, someone's voice, or there's any kind of commotion, chaos, or just bad energy, I'm out. This is a different time. People are very quick to react. People are under a lot of pressure. People don't have hope for the future, and they're quick to pull out weapons and handle their issues that way. I don't want any part of it, and I do wish that she had walked away the moment she realized that he was not worth her argument.
So let's examine just from the child perspective, and I want to set the template of the context with a passage from a study more specifically on the erasure of girls' childhood, specifically in the African community. In this particular section, it's titled "The Construct of Childhood and the Consequences of Culpability." Please bear with me while I read this passage. Children occupy a unique position in our public systems. Once treated as miniature adults, our perception of young people's innocence and ongoing development has led over time to granting children leniency when determining the consequences of their behavior. The special legal status bestowed on youth in particular is based on a well-established understanding of children's social and psychological development, that they should be held less responsible and culpable for their actions, and that they are capable through an ongoing developmental process of rehabilitation. These foundational legal and moral principles protect children from criminalization and extend safeguards that shield them from the harsh penalties viewed on adults. So that's the context I want to set. And in hearing that from this research piece, how does that impact the context of this discussion in terms of the young man's behavior and how the legal system responded to it? Who would like to take a shot at that?
So, with respect to that context, I believe that the legal system responded accordingly.
Yes.
Because, obviously, you can't throw a child does not view the world the same way as an adult does. And I agree. The only difference I make is that our legal system, and again, I said this is a one-off. This situation did turn out correctly, but the one-off is that they don't treat our Black boys as children. Once they get to a certain age and or size, they absolutely treat them as adults. In fact, I pulled up the numbers. I pulled up the numbers of Chicago in which they waive, in Cook County, the number of times in which they waive adult kids into adult courts. It's not common. However, with respect to murder and assault with a deadly weapon, and I believe there's three charges in particular that they almost always waive kids into adult court. I think this was one of them. And so I'm actually glad this outcome was what it was. But I'm also still shocked that the mom was waived of accountability as well. Yeah, I'm just going to read a quick comment. Comment is from the Shade Tree Intellectual George. It says, George, tell me if I'm wrong, but why are we assuming ownership of bad actors based on a racial group membership? That said, I also don't want people criminalized for the same reason either. Am I off?
No, that's a great point, a great observation, because right now race is front and center, and especially as it pertains to the legal system. And I dare say that based on the color of the child's skin, it will determine the perception of the event. And that's based purely on research. So Shade Tree Intellectual is correct. The same event with a child of different pigmentation would be handled and spoken about totally different. The perception of the African, and they don't even look at them as African, they call them Black, is totally different and more harsh than the perception of a racially white youth. And that comes back, actually this research speaks to that. I'll read another piece from this. Beginning in slavery, Black boys and girls were imagined as chattel and were often put to work as young as 2 and 3 years old, subjected to much of the same dehumanization suffered by Black adults. Black children were rarely perceived as being worthy of playtime and were severely punished for exhibiting normal childlike behaviors. Recent research reveals that the differential treatment of Black male youth based on race today I lost my place. Most notably, in 2014, Professor Goff and colleagues published an experimental study demonstrating that from the age of 10, Black boys are perceived as older, more likely to be guilty than their white peers, and that police violence against them is more justified. And that's just a psychological conditioning of a generationally practiced ideology of race. When we see kids, we see our children through a prism of color, either Black or white.
The idea that they see Black boys as older, that's the Tamir Rice situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the caller called in, described him as an adult. The cop came there and within seconds made the determination that this was an adult with a deadly weapon and terminated him.
Correct.
That's unfortunate. You've heard me say many times that our boys, once they get to a certain age and or size, we immediately treat them as adults and give them responsibility as adults. And I think that's extraordinarily unfair. We don't allow our Black boys to be boys. We don't give them the boys will be boys, and we don't give them the grace that they should be afforded, as they're making their way to adulthood, and that's extraordinarily unfortunate. Zuri said earlier that this could have been handled differently. It could have been de-escalated, and a lot of the arguments were that there were other men in the restaurant, and they could have de-escalated the situation. And I was hoping to get kind of her thoughts on that. But I wanted to kind of lead with this. In a society, I get it that we as men we're supposed to keep the order, right? That's kind of the charge that we're given. But given the area, I mean, we're talking about the South Side of Chicago. A lot of people that are from the South Side of Chicago often talk about how dangerous it is. It's extraordinarily violent. Actually, pretty much 90% of the gun deaths that happens in Chicago and the gun violence happens in this particular part of the city, which gives the entire city as a whole a bad name. But I guess my question would be, how would you expect men to, given that setting, how would you expect men to be the de-escalators in that setting? You got an environment in which there's a lot of illegal guns in the streets, and how do you quell the situation given that narrative or given that setting?
Well, that's no. Was that question to Tashi?
Actually, that question was to Zuri, but I think I lost her. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh wait a second. There she is. Zuri, did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't feel like our men should put our life on the line for behavior like that. A lot of our men have lost their lives due to something like that. I agree with you. And I don't think it was even right for her to even order her son to go get the gun and then shoot somebody else. So that kind of tells you kind of behavior she's on anyway, because I don't know. I think a lot of women in a situation like that, especially with the man you don't know and you don't have a husband there to protect you, so then you expect your son to do man duties. She could have just walked away and been like, okay, we need to go somewhere else and get some food. And a lot of
So
people were running away because it could have been them, or you don't even know if they had a gun in the situation.
got it. Well, I want to be fair. And I want to offer an alternative narrative of the events. Some say, her family, some other witnesses say that she didn't text her son to come. He could clearly see the mom left the gun. She was a licensed concealed carry holder. I want to also point that out. And I'm going to kind of throw something in to this mix in just a second. But she was a licensed concealed carry holder. And so an alternative theory is that, an alternative narrative is that the son could see into the restaurant, saw the guy kind of get in his mom's face, grabbed the gun and stood in the doorway. And when the guy attacked, the son reacted appropriately, as some people say. If that's the narrative, Zuri, does your Does your feelings about de-escalation change?
Say the last part one more time.
If the narrative given that the mom is a concealed carry holder, that's a fact,
Okay.
and that the son could see into the restaurant, see the guy get in the mom's face, grab the gun, stood in the doorway, and when the guy hit his mom twice, he responded. If that's the appropriate narrative, does your thoughts about the de-escalation change?
That's a hard one right there. I think I that's a hard one because to me I'm like I'm like with you guys. I'm glad that all the charges got dropped, but I still feel like, and even we as a people, maybe they could have chimed in, or it could have been like, like they say at the end of the day, we're kind of adults. Walk away. If somebody's yelling at you, like, I'm not gonna lie, if I was in a situation like that and the person started yelling at me like that, I'm walking away. I'm not even gonna argue with you at all.
Tashi, you shaking your head over there. What are your thoughts about alternate narrative?
I just agree 1,000%. And I said that. I'm sorry, I had to relocate and try to get closer to the thing because my signal is not great. But yeah, I fully agree. I would just leave. I wish that she had left because, to the point that you made earlier, I'm going to say we, because this is a sister and a nephew of mine, part of my community. We lucked out this time. We really lucked out. It did not have to go the way it went. And the justice system is not always fair to us. They didn't have to be released. It could have gone another way. And I just wish, that guy could have been armed. Jeremy Brown, the deceased.
That's what I was saying.
He could have been armed. It just, when you think about all the ways it could have gone, I just want our people, if nobody gets anything else from anything I say, walk the hell away. I just want our people to just walk away as often as you can. Just walk away.
Especially as a woman. A man in my, especially as a woman. She didn't know this man from anywhere.
Let me read the sequence of events stated in this incident. In Chicago.
What is the source, George? I'm sorry.
This is from WTTW News out of Chicago. Okay. Matt Masterson is the author. A Chicago woman and her 14-year-old son are facing murder charges after a physical altercation in a fast food restaurant. Carlicia Hood, 35, and her teenage son have been charged with first-degree murder. Now, Hood went inside while her son stayed in their vehicle. That was the first thing. But once inside, she allegedly got into a verbal argument with Brown. Now, at that point, had she been using, as Tashi has been suggesting, some emotional intelligence, she could have been proactive or preventative and said, this is not a good situation. But, we weren't there. We don't know what was said. That's something, because people can be triggered. And, it's always easy to say what you should do after incident, but who knows what you would do.
Absolutely.
I've been caught at the wrong time and have not always been perfect in my response. It's human nature. So then, once inside, she allegedly got into a verbal argument with Brown, whom she did not know prior to this incident. That altercation escalated and turned physical when Brown began punching Hood in the head at least 3 times. Now, as a woman, a man hitting a woman, not once, 3 times in public. As that was happening, the 14-year-old entered the restaurant and pulled a handgun from his hoodie pocket and allegedly shot Brown in the back. Brown fled the restaurant, but Hood yelled at her son. This is when she made the order. Hood yelled at her son to kill Brown as the teen pursued him and fired additional shots at him. So, wow, that is trauma, guys.
Yes.
So
Have
let me
to
just
find it.
jump in real quickly, George, because I've read multiple accounts that
Right.
are reporting that the initial reports were false. Again, like I said at the beginning, I wasn't there. I have not become an expert in this case. I've just read a lot of articles, probably like all of you have.
Right.
Almost everything that I've read, and I also stalked the family's page for the last however many days as well. But everything that I read said that all of the initial reports were false. At
Yeah.
first, it was said that she texted him to come in and bring the gun or whatever. That was said later to be untrue. Then it was said that she told her son to shoot him and to shoot him again.
Right.
And that was later said to be untrue as well. So, I don't know what
You know,
isn't it true, but
you know what? That's fine. However, whatever version of it was traumatic.
it was traumatic. Yeah,
Very.
sure.
And something happened because that happens. People's recall of the situation during traumatized and really heightened. Everybody's recall is going to be subjective, no matter how well you think
That's
you are.
correct. That's
All right.
correct.
But the larger, bigger picture is that this was a extremely traumatic environment, and none of us, even the four of us here, don't know really how we would react in that situation.
Correct. Yeah, I
And
fully
but
agree.
but least of all, a child. And a child has the one thing about a child is that they have no control over their environments. They are automatically put in environments that other adults put them in.
Right.
And here's another aspect about adolescent development that most people don't know. Now, the child was angry because clearly he knew his mother had been attacked. Here's a piece of uh, psychological development, scientific information that most people don't understand about youth. They cannot both be angry and think at the same time. They can only do one or the other because their brains have not formed fully enough to the adult level. As adults, we are more capable. We have the ability to do it. However, clearly in our current social environment today, we're not utilizing that ability.
I was gonna say that.
But our brains are fully formed, so we have the ability if we decide to exercise that discipline, which is what emotional intelligence is. You don't just become emotionally intelligent. You have to learn how to get to that level so that you don't get triggered as much. But a 14-year-old who just seen or heard his mother being beaten by some man, that it's your bet that he's going to respond in like manner based on the authority or the instruction of his parents.
Can I say this, or just a question to maybe you guys, and I don't know, it might make you guys kind of even look at it differently. Do you think the story would have changed if her husband was there with her, or if she was married, and the situation
Okay.
would have been changed, and a 14-year-old kind of would never even had to be involved?
I want to jump in real quickly on that. This is my first time meeting you, Zuri, so I don't even know your perspective on anything at all. So it's definitely not personal, but having heard all that I've heard this week, having read all that I've read this week, I don't want to, again, I'm not sure if that's what you were doing, but I don't want to give the impression that this has anything to do with her being a single mom or a single woman or anything like that. Because married women go to restaurants by themselves too, or they go to restaurants with just their kids and all of that stuff. I do agree that if that's not where you were going, then I would agree, like, yeah, it would be really different if her husband was there, because maybe he would have been the one shooting, or maybe the man would not have even, like, first of all, a man would probably be pulling his wife back, like, out, let's go. Men are, a good friend of mine says this all the time, like, a man, they really have two modes. They're not doing all the in between.
No.
Bicker and bicker and bickering
Point.
and escalate louder and louder. And men, it's either yo, we're gonna have to like agree to disagree, or we're gonna fight. Like that's it. Unless you're a man like Penny who will debate until Jesus comes. But seriously, I agree. It would be different for sure, but I don't know how different. And I want to be real careful not to, in any way, even with my own commentary, blame the victim or imply any blame upon the victim. And I think Miss Hood, Carlisha Hood, and her son, I don't remember his name, I think they are the victims here.
They're not gonna release his name.
Yeah, he's underage.
He's underage.
No. I told you I was stalking the family's page, so I do know his name.
So okay.
His aunt, Carlisha's sister was praying for both of them using their names, but in any case.
So I Monday morning quarterback this, as we all did, and I don't expect, given given where it is, I don't expect people to intervene. I would wish that more people would intervene and de-escalate, but I don't expect them to, given the given the
Nowadays,
location.
yeah.
Given the fact that people are carrying more and more weapons, but
Right.
I will add this. So I Monday morning quarterbacked it. George's back. And the only other thing that if I'm playing Monday morning quarterback that I would have changed would be, she's a concealed carry holder. She has the legal right to carry a pistol in the state of Illinois. She owned a pistol. Had she had it on her in that instance and he punched her, she would have been well within her rights to use force.
Right.
And there would have been no harm, no foul. However, I will say this, even in my Monday morning quarterbacking, there's a flaw. I'm assuming that she's treated accordingly and is allowed to use self-defense, as I have not seen many Black people be able to do in any circumstance. But that's just my Monday morning quarterback, because I do feel bad for this young man for many reasons. The trauma of seeing his mom hit. He now has the trauma of killing somebody.
Killing somebody.
Yeah, and that is heavy. I have an uncle that was served in Vietnam, and he talked about and some buddies that served, and they talk about just the death that they saw over there, and having to kill somebody, and again, Vietnam was what are we 60 years out, and so it still haunts them today. I cannot imagine being a 14-year-old having to carry that burden at 14. I couldn't imagine.
Right.
Agreed.
Right. I agree.
Let me pose another. Hopefully, I'll stay in this time. I don't know how much I said last got cut off, but let me pose another aspect to this. It's easy right now to focus on the outrageousness of this situation, which would on its face seem to be an aberration. What's the correct? Is it aberration or aberration?
I think that's a tomato one right there.
Yeah, I'm like,
It depends on which word. I'm not sure which word you're trying to say, because there are two different
out
words.
of the norm.
Yeah.
Aberration.
Thank you, Tashi. Aberration. But let me submit to you that it's not quite out of the norm as we might think, and that it might be a little hypocritical for many of us as adults to really put judgment on this particular situation in view of the general normalized chaotic violence occurring amongst adults in almost every aspect of our existence in America, from the school systems to the political systems, to the sports arena. You name the context, adults are in it, and adults are not behaving very well, and they're setting the example for these kids. What say you?
I agree.
Me too.
1,000%. I always say that. I was like, a lot of us sometimes, as the older generation, we like to blame the youth and what they're going through. But I always say, at the end of the day, I'm like, It's not a product of the environment, but they go like kids grow off of what they see and what they're raised upon. And a lot of us didn't put in change, how you said, for the younger generation, because I feel like if it was, we probably wouldn't be at the point we are at today. In a lot of aspects of our personal lives or just lives in general as a community, as a people, things like that.
We had this recent incident where in Florida, where this woman shot the mother through the front door in front of her child.
Yep. And got off.
She didn't get off.
They dropped the charge.
They dropped the murder charge. She's still charged with homicide.
Right.
I'm not homicide, with manslaughter. She's still charged with manslaughter.
Is she still charged with manslaughter?
She's still charged with manslaughter. She still faces 30 years.
Okay. Oh, that's good enough.
Yeah.
I saw it in passing yesterday, and I thought they dropped all the charges. I thought the headline that I read said that the district attorney said that she didn't have enough evidence to pursue charges. I thought that was.
To be clear, and this is where people struggle. Everyone wants, when someone's killed, everyone wants murder charges to be filed. Murder is a harder hill. It's a harder hill to climb judicially, and so manslaughter is easier to prove. That's what happened in the Trayvon Martin case. Everyone wanted him to be charged with murder, and he was overcharged. Had he been charged with manslaughter, that fool would be in prison.
Yeah,
because it's still a hefty penalty.
Agreed.
And here's the overlap. I call it intersectionality. It's used in a lot of different contexts. But in previous situations like these, politics has infiltrated itself in these daily type of social conflicts. And once a political side takes a position for or against, now that behavior that should be a faux pas becomes a symbol of some ideology. And I put it past the possibility of that happening with this lady. It's happened with many other people who have had wrongful, questionable shootings from no place of authority, but once it got into a political realm, it took a life of its own.
If no one was about to ask a question, I have a question that might be a slight left turn. Still on subject. Are you good with that?
Put your signal on and go.
Okay, so the topic for this conversation was defend Black women at all costs with a question mark. And I'm still trying to figure out where you were trying to go with that, because
the topic.
I think I know where he was going with it when he asked the question.
I think so too, sis.
The topic of this show.
I'm a little geared up.
Wait, the topic of this show was defend Black women at all costs.
That's what Penny said.
To be clear, we are running a show, right? Remember that headline that you read that said murder charges dropped? Caught your attention, didn't it?
Okay.
And amongst the conversations around this particular one, that was the overarching theme. And so, in order to draw people in on the conversation,
I got you.
That's the title.
Well,
that's the title.
To be clear, my answer to the question is yes. Defend Black women at all doggone costs. You doggone right.
Okay. Well, let's get back to we'll get back to the theme. But tell me why you had issues with that particular piece that I brought up.
Why I had issue with it?
Yeah, you said, well, and not necessarily issues, but you said, why am I going that direction? Tell me what you were thinking.
No. I said I was going a different direction. I was making a left for a quick second because my eye caught the topic at the top.
Oh.
It wasn't a response to what you said. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
ADD moment. I'm easily distracted.
I got to catch up.
So since we opened that door, Tashi, you know we do. Since you opened that door, so you said, at all costs, even if worst case scenario, this young man not only has, as they say in the streets, a body on his hands, but he has a bid to do. That's I mean, that's good. I mean, that's at all cost, right? You're good with that?
I don't know a man. I haven't seen a single man, even the trash men, even the trash on Facebook and Instagram. I've not seen a single man say that they would not have done the same had it been their mama. Boys don't play about their mama, and they shouldn't. They don't play about their mama. I have yet to meet the man who says, I wouldn't have done that if it were me.
I've seen. I was gonna say that I've seen a lot of men that are like, no, maybe if they were grown, but at a young age, they were like, no, they wouldn't have done it. And that's just being on several podcasts where a lot of people are talking about it. And I agree with Penny. Actually, I don't believe that the black man should defend the black woman at all costs, especially if it costs him his life, if it's an ill behavior that she created or drama that she created.
I mean, listen.
I got another one for you, Tashi. You know, with George's permission, I got another one, George.
Take it to the limit.
So here in Florida, does the name Travis? Is it Travis Smith? Hold on, let me get his actual name.
And yeah, it doesn't tell if that's where you were
Young
going.
man got shot multiple times.
Huh?
The young man that got shot multiple times.
A young man that killed someone.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Give me 1 second.
Me either.
He was recently acquitted.
What's his name? Did you see his name?
Travis. His first name is Travis. I cannot remember his last name. Give me 1 second. I know we don't like dead air.
Travis Rudolph. Oh no,
Travis Rudolph. Yes.
Oh, okay.
He played Florida State. So long story short, he was dating a woman who was married. He was the side piece. She was upset because he was apparently talking to somebody else, even though she was married. They got into an argument at his house. She called her cousins. She called people to his house to handle him, and they came with guns. He with a gun in Florida at his house, fired at them, killing one of them, and he was charged with murder. Up at trial, they learned that she told the guys to go shoot up his SHI, sugar honey iced tea. They of course followed the instruction because her and him had got into a slight physical. Now she came to his house, charging him up about talking to somebody else. They got into a physical altercation because he wanted her out of his house. Physical altercation at his house. After her accusing him of cheating, mind you, she's married. She called her boys in to handle it. One of them gets killed. That falls under the defend black women at all costs, does it not, Tashi?
Yeah. So let me just say this because I will acknowledge that you know me better than the other.
I'm picking.
I know, and I don't want to fall into the habit of assuming that people know what's going on in my head, and I do that all the time. So let me be clear. Ain't no way in the world that I think that black women or any human being, woman, man, boy, child, whatever, I don't think any human being should be defended at all costs, unless we're talking about a defenseless child, a defenseless elder. I don't play about my elders. I don't play about the kids. Other than that, I wouldn't say at all costs, but I do definitely believe that we have been left in a position where we are often left without defense. And because of all of the division that has been brewing between black men and black women over the last however many years it's been, and social media, I think, is making it worse. Because of all of that, there are all these different excuses and explanations for why black women should no longer be protected or no longer qualified to be protected. And at the end of the day, I would say that sometimes we're putting too much thought into it. That's all. Sometimes we're putting too much thought into it. We're, especially with the Monday, what is it? Monday morning quarterbacking. It's always, well, what kind of life did they live? Or what did they say on social media? Because all of that's going to determine whether I would have defended them or not, or whether their life had any value or not. What they did before determines whether or not. And one thing I always hear with my friends saying is she obedient? Does she listen? Because if she's not listening, if she's not obeying and submitting and following and listening, then she doesn't deserve protection. That's where I kind of draw the line. And we would have to nitpick it because there's all these different circumstances and scenarios, but I just don't like where we are as a people with that whole conversation.
I think you hit on the major crux as it pertains to our community of these issues like this Travis Rudolph, the Kalisha Hood, name the incident. They all have very similar components that lead to the same path. And I think it was Penny that asked the question about what's the role of the men that were in that environment. And so when it comes to protection, protection begins way before the incident happens.
Right.
And when you see these incidents occur and they're not an aberration, did I say that right, Tashi?
You did.
But they are a normalcy, then at some point you got to stop focusing on the individual issue and question, why is this dynamic continuing to occur? And what you said, Tashi, was powerful, even though it was in passing. The lack of protection is in the division between the male and the female community.
Absolutely.
And all of these situations, not all of them, but the majority of them usually have the similar connecting pattern of a single mother situation where the man is not really in the near proximity to help prevent. I've heard it often said from a sports analogy, the best offense is defense, or the best defense is offense, meaning you got to be, the best defense is offense, meaning being proactive. When you find yourself in a situation where you're in a scuffle, typically that means you haven't been very proactive.
You know what I don't like? Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to really say that it's this division between the male and female that on a larger level puts families in vulnerable situations where they have to be reactionary more than proactive.
Agreed.
With a full unified male and female unit, many of these dynamics,
wouldn't happen.
typically speaking, would be significantly reduced on several levels. Reduced, first of all, by more emotional control. Second of all, by if and when the situation, you find yourself in a situation, you may take a different choice of behavior than immediate physical altercation. As Tashi said, reading the room and saying, "Oh, you know what?
I'm out."
Yeah, exactly.
Quickly.
Like the piano player on Color Purple in that scene.
Yes. Back up and go. Seriously,
I was just saying
I always
today,
think about what the story is. Oh, go ahead, Siri.
I was just saying today that I was like, at the end of the day, I talk a lot, but sometimes you, as a woman, you gotta know when to shut up.
Shut up and go.
Shut up and keep it moving. Like, you gotta know when, like, hey, I need to shut up right about now.
And it's not because of, I want to tag on to that. because I know my friends and I don't usually think alike on this kind of stuff. I am a strong believer in submission. I'm conservative. I believe in strong traditional gender roles and all of that, and most of my friends don't. That said, knowing when to shut up doesn't mean that you need to shut up because you're subservient, or you need to shut up because you're lesser than,
Exactly.
because you're weaker. That's not what it means. What it means is you need to make it home tonight. Period.
Exactly. I got a son.
It's not because you don't have a right to go toe to toe with a man. It's not because you don't have, the right to be heard. It's not even because you don't have anything of value or of substance to say. It's not because you're wrong in the situation.
Right.
It's simply because in this day and age, I just want my
That's
people
crazy.
to get home.
And use wisdom sometimes. Sometimes
Yes.
it's like you said, use wisdom. That's when wisdom comes in and play.
Yeah. I mean, I just fully agree. I just want people to make it home. That's all. Like,
And the fact that these scenarios are occurring at such areas of regularity means that we're dealing with a bigger issue, and it goes right. The heart of it is what Tashi mentioned in terms of the gap between the male and female. That is truly our strongest weapon. And as an American African community, we're not utilizing it.
Well, I think it's being utilized, and it's being utilized against us. The gap itself is being utilized against us. The fact that we are so divided is being used to divide us. Case in point, and this is what I was going to say a couple minutes ago. We're now to a place where you can't even have conversations about this stuff because people are so on edge and ready to defend. Think about where my head was when Zuri asked the question about whether it would have been different if a man was there with her, if her husband was there. I don't remember what she said, but I was ready. From that moment, I was like, oh God, please don't tell me she's about to do that. I'm ready. Didn't even know where she was going with it. But because I hear it day in and day out, all of the anti-single mama, and I'm very sensitive to that. No, I'm not a single mom. I have never been a single mom. Technically, I adopted my daughter, so maybe, but not that kind of single mom. I'm just sensitive to it, period, because it divides us. It's the same thing with this week. I've been in one of my groups having conversations about toxic masculinity. When you say that, there's this tension that kind of takes over the room when Black men are present because it feels like an attack to them. That's what I mean. We're in a place where we can't even have conversations because we're ready to fight. Like we're ready to, and I don't mean physically, but we're ready to argue with each other because we feel attacked because we've been attacked all along, men and women. That gap, that division is a weapon to harm us, to push us even further apart. I don't know how we get over that, but we need to.
Totally agree. Totally agree. That happens to be a large focus of my work. But Penny, what are your thoughts? Because I work as a therapist, so that I'm dealing with this on a daily basis, and I've created a platform to address this on a more large, systemic basis. And we talk about this quite a bit on a lot of our podcasts. Penny, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Tashi. I think that a lot of us. I mean, it is triggering. I myself have had to teach myself to take a step back and listen. George, we've had this conversation. I said the greatest learning that I've done in the past, year and a half is because as much as I love to talk and debate, I've learned more and I've gotten further in understanding by just listening and hearing people out and understanding their perspective. Even if we are on different ends of the spectrum, I understand it, to take a step back. But again, I had to learn this because, I too used to get triggered by, certain words. You say the words toxic masculinity or patriarchy or, Black men in the same sentence and you about to set me off, hold on, you watch your mouth. And so, but I've gotten better at just kind of listening. But I do agree. On one hand, it's like, it is divisive. However, some of the conversations are necessary.
Right.
To understand, because you'll never understand the other side of the coin if you don't have a conversation with the other side. But I think that we have to get to a place where we can learn to hear, because people are very easily triggered. And it's trauma, right? It's trauma. People are triggered because it's trauma that they haven't dealt with, and so there's triggers. And I forget there's another word for triggers, George. There's a psychological term for what we call triggers.
That's the one I use, trigger.
Oh no, no,
want to use trigger?
There is a word.
There's another term for it. I heard someone else use a different term, and they said that's what you all call triggers. But in any event, people, long story, shorten it up, people have to learn how to check their own triggers in order to have a healthy conversation. Because when you get, if you can get past that, you actually can have great conversations. Well, me and Tashi talk for hours on end and on end and on end and on end.
Sometimes agreeing, but we will always find that one thing that we don't agree on and stretch it out.
And stretch it out. Stretch it out.
It's true. It's true.
Well, let me present to you a big picture of what we're dealing with, and then try to drill down in it and see how these concepts hit you. What most people, the average person, doesn't know, now Penny's heard this before, but I say it because it's relevant and it's hitting us today. And we just had a Supreme Court demonstration of what I'm about to share with you. The CDC, Center for Disease Control, every major medical and psychological association is officially on declaration of racism as a public health crisis. Public health crisis in all of the social determinants of health: education, employment, health, public safety, food access, you name the systemic area of service, racism is adversely and disproportionately affecting communities. Now, why is this important? Well, public health crisis is when a situation's health circumstances have the ability to overwhelm a community's ability to address them. So like with COVID, it became a crisis because bodies were piled up outside of hospitals. They could not deal with the treatments fast enough than what the patients were coming in. And this is what COVID has revealed in these communities, that many of the disparities that COVID revealed are traced directly back to racism. So this isn't an opinion. It's not a subjective point of view. These are borne out through statistical, scientific research. However, people cannot cerebrally connect with racism as a public health crisis like they can with COVID, right? So, because how do you treat racism the way you treat COVID? You can't social distance, you can't mask it, and there's no vaccine. But it's impacting us at systemic levels. And this is important because when you're in a public health crisis, you're in survival mode. And here's the thing about survival. Us four, we're sitting here, most likely we're in pretty good positions. We're speaking like, okay, we've got a little cushion between our current situation and the next catastrophe that could happen. We're prepared. We've got, hopefully, within reason. But the reality is that the mind cannot both survive and improve at the same time. Yeah. You can only do one or the other. And as it pertains to the American African community, statistically speaking, we're in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you think differently. You don't think the way that Tashi's talking about in terms of how to navigate more effectively through a situation. You think like Alicia Hood is thinking about. He snapped on me, I'm snapping on him. oh, he hit me. I'm getting my son, who just happened, if this version is true, happened to have the hoodie, had my gun in his hoodie, ready to pull out.
No, I don't think that.
I'm just, however they came.
I know, but
yeah, I'm just saying the point is that that's survival thinking. That's not improvement thinking. And racism has a lot to do with it. And racism is a significant reason why we have this gap that she has spoken about. Because what that's done is it put the female in survival, and it's put the male out of his role. I mean, I can't even for survival for the male. It's much worse for the male in terms of how it impacts him. It looks different on the male than on the female. Just differences, and I really appreciate the nuance that Tashi brought in. They even use the divide. So male, female come.
Some background noise.
They're divided from the start to talking about each other, so they can't even acknowledge this gap and have the mental, emotional incentive to say, "How do we get closer?" One, it becomes a conversation of you have to agree with me and see it exactly the way that I see it, and vice versa. So the two never come across. Thoughts?
That's where Black male leadership comes into play. We cannot, and it sounds like the four of us are probably more on the same page than not, just from what I'm hearing in general. We cannot be those people who say that Black women need to submit more, need to listen more, need to follow more, if we're not also going to be the same people saying that Black men need to lead more. You cannot say, and I don't mean you personally, just generally, you cannot say that this is the condition, right, that we're in, and we're divided and we're not on the same page, we're not whatever, and not also charge Black men with taking ownership over our current condition. I believe, I won't budge off of my position that men are the leaders of the community. Speaking of the Black community, Black men are the leaders of the community. The condition that we're in, Black men are responsible for seeing it and fixing it, not giving into it, not yielding to it or submitting to it and saying, well, this is just the way we are. Women don't want to be, they don't want chivalry, so I ain't holding no doors. And women don't want to be protected, so I ain't protecting them. And women don't want, that's not leadership. That's not leadership at all. It's not leadership.
Let me ask you some questions for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So you're saying that the African male needs to lead. Does that imply that until he leads, that the African female has no responsibility? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
When I refer to gender roles, that means that women have a role and men have a role. Everybody's got responsibility.
Gotcha. So the African male should lead. Now, the fact that the African male, from your perception, from your opinion, is not leading, in your opinion, why are the African males not leading?
I think that they are not leading. I think there are a bunch of reasons. Off the top of my head, I would say because they don't know how to lead, because they've been deflated for whatever reason, for a multitude of reasons, I'm sure. Because they're distracted or preoccupied with other things, and possibly because they feel like they've been pushed out. They've yielded to the narrative. They've given in to all of the voices out there that are saying that all the stuff that voices are saying that Black women feel about Black men, half of it not even true. It's just voices out there saying it and perpetuating all of the divide.
Okay, so from there, what should the African female do? Now that you've assessed that, what is the African female's role in helping the African male begin to assert his role, if you feel there is one?
I think that that women have a role. Like I said, I subscribe to traditional gender roles, period, for men and for women.
Right.
I definitely believe that women.
But we're not talking about a traditional situation right now, where you just described and analyzed pretty accurately the situation on the male side of the coin. So now that you have that analysis, what should today's African woman do to help close this gap with the African male in view of everything you just asserted?
I don't, I have to give that some thought. Honestly, that's not, and I'm going to say it this way. The reason I want to give that thought is that I'm not comfortable with my answer. That's the bottom line.
That's what this. We need that. Oh, this is gonna be good.
You about to cuss, Tashi? You about to cuss for the first time?
Oh, you're not.
I'm just teasing.
No,
I'm just teasing. I'm teasing.
Yeah, no, I don't like the answer that I have in my head, because I don't know how to make smart out of it. I don't know how to make sense out of the answer that's in my head. But truly, my bottom line, and take it however you take it, my bottom line is that men need to lead. Like, stop worrying about what women are doing. Just lead. Don't look behind you. Don't look across the street. Don't worry about who's following. Just lead.
Totally agree. But let me add an additional context to that for you.
I think Zuri's trying to hop in too.
I'm gonna let her in because I want to see if she answers the question. But just to say that, my father always told me this: it's not enough to say, "Be a man." Teach me how to be a man. So it's easy when we get in these situations to say what people should do. However, as you pretty accurately assessed, Tashi, a lot of adults today are not equipped to do it. So just telling them to do it, even though it's right, may not be the most effective strategy. It's got to be.
But that's where y'all come in, because I'm not even supposed to be telling you to do it. I don't believe that's my role. But that's where you come in. Those of you that know, teach those other brothers to lead. Tell them.
Okay, so Zuri, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think men are trying to lead, but women won't let them.
Girl, no.
Yeah, I really, that's just my thoughts on it, because like you say, how if men need to leave women alone or just go ahead and lead, then women need to stop telling men what a real man is or what this and that is, and let the men lead. If we just want them to lead, as you say, then we should just follow when they start leading, instead of asking 50,000 questions, who, what, when, where, when it's the best for our people.
Oh, it's so nuanced though, because I feel like all of this is the social media effect. Like, I don't half the stuff that I hear people talking about when it comes to men and women, I don't hear that stuff in my real life. I don't know men that hate Black women. I don't know misogynists or misandrists in real life. Like, I just
exactly. I understand that, but I think I forgot what I said the other day. Just because it's not our reality doesn't mean that it's not unreal or that it's not true.
I agree. I think what I'm saying, though, I definitely agree. In fact, I just said, I think it was last week on another live video, that just because you don't see something outside of your window doesn't mean it's not there. Like, the world doesn't look like what you see out of your window. There's more to the world. So I definitely acknowledge that there's a lot more than just what I see in my world. But I also think I think we all would agree. I don't know that anyone would disagree.
Mainly social media. I kind of agree with that, but social media is also a way to where it's been exposed more, so people really do know what's going on. So now, I mean, even in everyday reality, you don't even have to see it on social media. You can look around in your city and see what's going on.
But see, that's what I mean. I don't see that kind of stuff like in my city or in the real world. I just see it on.
I don't see that in my surrounding environment, but I know it exists.
Well, let me give you.
I think one last thing, George. I agree, Zuri. I think it exists. I don't think it exists to the scale. It reminds me of, and I just had this conversation the other day too. I guess I talk a lot. It reminds me of the conversations around Black male violence and Black men going to prison and being, the greatest percentage of people killed by police, and the greatest percentage of people in prison, and the greatest percentage of men that abandon their kids and all that stuff, whatever it is that they're saying, which I recognize that what the data actually says. I'm talking about talking points here. When you talk about all of that stuff, the reality is that's a small fraction of the Black population. Most of us are not committing crimes. Most of us are not, like here in my city in Atlanta, and really across the country in urban cities. But in Atlanta, these young men will not stop breaking into cars. Like, it's a thing. They made it a thing. And you would believe, if you watch the news or if you sit in at the roundtable discussions and you participate in different conversations, you would think that all the Black men in Atlanta are busting out car windows at 2:00 in the morning. And it's such a small fraction, but it takes up such a big part of the conversation. And that's the only point that I'm making about this male-female thing. I recognize that there are people out there that believe that stuff, but I still think it's a very small fraction.
I don't disagree.
So let
with
me give you.
Go ahead, George.
Let me give you a recent experience that I had that I think supports the dynamic that Zuri is bringing out. I think I'm a pretty decent guy. Not perfect. Not perfect.
I'm just kidding.
None of us are perfect.
Pretty decent guy. And the type of work I do, I have a strong passion for my community, and I'm trained in the area of family and development, family systems, youth and child development, adolescent development. I'm trained in these areas, and I'm continually getting educated on the ways of improving my skill set. In addition, I have created a platform that addresses, because coming from my professional expertise, that addresses the statistical connection between racism and mental health in our community specifically. So I'm well versed. I'm an expert, subject matter expert in my area. When I speak to women about these in our community, about this issue, it is extremely challenging to get the average woman to receive the information I'm presenting in a healthy, emotionally intelligent way. Not agree or disagree, just to receive it and consider.
What information?
The information that I, as an expert in presenting in an authentic effort to improve the dynamic of this gap between our women, between our communities, because we are under systemic attack. And automatically, it's met with resistance rather than curiosity. And let me really hear what this guy is saying. And so it flies in the face with what, and I'm not saying you specifically, but because I hear a lot of women say what you say, it flies in the face, their behavior flies in the face of saying, that's why men should lead. And then when men show leadership, it's met from the average woman in our community with extreme resistance, almost, not almost, but very aggressive, very dismissive, and they're easily triggered. Now, when I say these things, it's not a disparaging way, it's not a criticism, because from a psychological standpoint, I understand where their resistance comes from. However, I'm saying that to demonstrate that here is a true example of a man showing leadership, demonstrating leadership, and as Zuri says, all too often, more than not, I run into very strong resistance from the African female in my community.
George, wasn't that the experience on Clubhouse? The unfortunate experience on Clubhouse? Wasn't that the...
You were at that one. That's true.
Yeah, I was there. Wait, Tashi, weren't you there as well?
I was there.
You were there.
That was
right. You were there.
Tashi, that was you?
Yeah.
No, wait, that wasn't
her. It wasn't her. Tashi was there.
I was there.
Young lady. Yeah. Tashi doesn't. Yeah.
No, that definitely wasn't me, but I was there, and it was
there. It was, and I was gonna say, Tashi, I agree that the stuff that you quote is the minority, but I was gonna say that the fact that there are the demands on men to be leaders is heavy, but the number of leaders, the number of men that aren't trained to lead is a majority. And to George's point, so for example, I'm on the board of a group of an organization, nonprofit organization that's about children's rights, right? That's the board. The majority of the clients are men, right? And overwhelmingly, these men are in court fighting to get a lot of their boys, and they're being met with resistance from women. And so you're saying lead, right? This is what they're attempting to do. And there's this wall and there's this barrier, and there's not a counter to a group of women saying, hey, let those boys go. There are a ton of coaches and a ton of mentoring programs, and they're met with resistance. This is one of the reasons why my teaching career didn't last very long, and one of the reasons why I left that avenue, because it's the resistance, and it mostly was from moms. So it's one thing to say you need to lead, but if there isn't that counter, that other half saying move out of the way, plus you have the systemic racism that's a thing. It's a thing standing in the way. It's like it's one against two. That's not a fair fight, and it's not a fair fight to tell men to just man up and defeat that. Especially when we're not even socializing our young boys to even be productive and competitive. That's a whole other problem. That's another show, another problem. I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other problem, because our boys are way behind it, and you guys know how I feel about our black boys. And so, but this is deep. This is worth a whole other show.
Yeah.
A whole other show. And I think that we should table this, because we can go on.
Yeah,
I think we should table this for another show that Tashi would be a part of.
But we'd like to have you back, Tashi.
I would right. Listen, I have no shortage of opinion when it comes to the Black community, the Black family, and the relationship between Black men and Black women. If I may, though, I just have to at least let this be my last word if we're moving on or wrapping things up. This is a fight that I have often in social media groups. I am submissive. I identify as submissive. I even have at one point in my life trained women to be submissive, or trained women in submission. That was something that I did freelance for many, many years. I believe firmly in it. However, when I'm in these Facebook groups and even at work in real life scenarios, there are always men who will scoff at the idea of my being submissive because I'm so outspoken, because I have such a decisive voice, because I have an opinion that I'm not afraid to share. And what I tell them is exactly what I want to leave here today, not speaking directly to the two of you gentlemen, but just in general to my brothers worldwide. My being submissive does not mean that I have to submit to you. My wanting you to be a leader does not mean that I have to follow you. It doesn't make you the leader of all of Black America, and it doesn't make me the follower of all Black men. So when we talk about why women won't follow and men won't lead, I'm not expecting any random man to tell me what to do tomorrow or where to go or strategize in my career or any of that stuff. I'm talking about the family unit. I'm talking about men taking responsibility for their wives, of course, for their girlfriends and baby mamas, for their sisters, for their daughters, of course, aunts, female cousins. I'm talking about that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about any old man leading any old woman. And the last thing that I would add is that if a woman is not receiving what you're saying, I touched on this a few minutes ago, when I said that I didn't think it was my place to be teaching you in the first place. I think that men should be teaching men. I feel the same way about women. I don't think it's a man's place to be giving women all this information that you believe we need to have and telling us how to follow and how we need to do this. And this is the ailments of the community and blah, blah, blah. If they're receiving it, then go for it. Go for it, for sure. But if a woman is not receiving that, maybe she's just not in a place in life or in her mind or in her spirit even where she can receive that kind of stuff from a man, when most likely she's so wounded, so hurt and bitter and upset and angry. So maybe it's just not a man that she needs to get those messages from. Women need to be teaching each other, and I believe men should be teaching each other as well.
Well, see,
you for indulging me. I really wanted to say that, so thank you.
I appreciate your honesty, and that'll set us up for the next show, because here's the thing. Everything you just explained is the reason it supports the behavior that I just demonstrated. Now, here's the thing. When having a conversation, the first mistake that the average woman makes is they think that the man is trying to own them or tell them what to do. It's just a conversation. So chill out, not to you specifically. But slow your roll. It's just a conversation. Nobody's trying to lead you, okay? And be respectful in it. Show respect. That was the other aspect about this process, is highly disrespectful. Yeah. It's not just enough to disagree, but the disrespect, the venom, the toxicity that comes from our women. And again, I'm not saying this to disparage, because I recognize the psychological condition that contributes to it. But it's just a conversation. So a man just is sharing, and like this discussion, nobody planned to go here, right? This was, but things happen. That's the great sign of a great talk show. It's just a conversation. You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree. Emotional intelligence just says, let's hear what he's got to say. Whether I agree or disagree is not the goal. It's just, let me consider what he says. Let him consider what I'm saying. Let's exchange information. Let it marinate. That's what intelligent and emotionally mature people do. And what I'm saying is, far too often, you get the situation that Zuri described, that you say you don't see, but Zuri sees it. I've seen it.
I'm not saying I don't see it, though, to be clear. I'm just saying I think it's such a small percentage. I don't think that there's an abundance of any of stuff. The experience that we had on Clubhouse, George, that was my first time in life ever seeing anything like that. It was jarring.
But see, to quantify it as a small percentage, that means you have to have some type of objective measurement. And that's mostly a subjective statement. So we really don't know how big or how large. But we know that qualitatively, it's a significant problem that speaks to the gap in our community. And if we can't just have a conversation without being triggered and traumatized and disrespectfully attacking, then what's the point? So again, one of the first steps, and I'm glad that you're going to come back and we're going to talk this week, because I really would like to move this forward to the next level in an effective, productive manner. The first point for women and men is nobody's trying to tell each other what to do. We're trying to work together to find a solution. So that requires listening. And I'm an expert in my field. I'm passionate about what I do. So all men, you don't need to be mad at me. And I'm not saying this to you.
I understand.
And Penny is an expert, highly skilled in his area. So when women see men like that, don't fight us.
No, George, no.
I'm not.
He's talking to the audience.
I'm not
Tashi,
saying
he's talking to the audience.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is George, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying, though, is you still can't make that general a statement, because unless Penny is talking about his area of expertise, no one has to listen to what he's saying just because he's an expert in his field and he's smart.
That's the wrong move. That's what I'm saying. That is the ineffective way. If a man is speaking and he's giving you his honest, earnest perspective as a man. Because one thing we can say is he's expert at being a man, and you're shaking your head. No, is what I'm saying.
No, he is. He's
Yeah, I
an
was gonna say that.
You're shaking your
expert
head.
at being- I'm not shaking my head. No, he's not. I believe he's
You're
an
the
expert.
example. What I'm talking about is that we have to learn to say, hey, look, guys, this is a discussion. There's no limits. As long as we're respectful, we're not. The goal is not for me to jam, force an opinion down your throat and for you to come away and say, George, you're right. That's not the goal here. And vice versa. It's to have a discussion and find where we can start finding the connection. But you can't do it if a woman is going to come up and say, well, he can't tell me what to do and he can't lead me. And I don't even know if I really need to hear it from a man.
Why couldn't that be a part of the conversation, though? What do you mean you can't do it if I'm going to say that? If that is my genuine opinion and that is a part of the conversation, and it is a healthy conversation.
No, it's not a healthy conversation with that attitude. It's just not. It's not.
Wait. Did you say with an attitude or with that attitude?
With that attitude.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Of course, and I'm not trying to make, but the point stands none the same, is that until women, and again, when I say these things, I'm just giving observational facts as a verified clinician. This isn't about what I think women should do. This is about healthy family development.
Right.
Okay, that's
Did
what
you get the message? Not who the message
hey,
came from.
You're gonna listen to me because I got a penis. That's not what this is about. This is about, hey, I'm skilled in family development. Here is the best path to take. And we all need to be examples of that, whether we are in relationships with each other or not. That's not the point. We have a bigger responsibility to our community. Ubuntu. I am because we are. So if you really take that cultural African philosophy to heart, you're not going to say things like, I don't need to listen to you. You're not leading me. You're not my daddy. That is unhealthy mentality that works against them.
But women do have human beings have agency. Any woman or any man can say, I don't need to listen to you because I run this, right? I run this.
Thing though, is that what you hear me saying? Do you hear me telling you that you don't have agency?
No, that's
right. I'm saying, I totally agree. You have so control your agency by saying, you know what? I may not even like this brother, but he seems to have some skill in this knowledge in this area. So even if I don't agree, I'm going to sit down because I'm secure in my own agency to hear what he has to say. And I can be respectful.
I'm so confused about whether you're speaking generally or about this right here. I'm getting confused.
Same context. It's no difference. It's the same context. What I do with you, I do with anybody, because the point is
understood.
You attack the problem, not the person.
Exactly. So you have not been attacked. I don't believe that I have been attacked. So I kind of am.
This is not at all. This isn't about you at all. Again, I keep talking conceptually.
But that's what I asked. That's exactly why I asked the clarifying question, because it wasn't. Okay, wait, George, hold on. That's the reason that I asked the clarifying question, because it was blurring a line, at least in my head, the way I was receiving it. It was starting to look like it was going back and forth between general commentary to the audience and commentary about me and what I am saying to you.
Put out to the audience.
Got you. I believe that any human being has the right to reject any opinion about anything.
So do I. So do I.
Okay, good. Now hold on. I believe that if we are, and Penny knows this, you probably know this too, George. It ain't our first rodeo either. Anytime we're talking about the law, I don't argue with Penny, period. And there have been a couple of times where I knew I was right, but I still wasn't going to argue with him because I'm not a lawyer. We've talked about flying the plane, and he's very dismissive of my fears. Although, y'all know I travel all the time. I fly all the time, but I still get very nervous when I get on the plane, and he's very dismissive of that. And when he starts talking, details and facts of the plane and all that stuff, I listen because I don't know better than he does, period. If we're talking about the experience of a man, I'm going to listen to that too, because that's just not my area of expertise. I am not disagreeing in that when a person has expertise, you yield to their expertise unless you know better, period. So that's not what I don't think that should have been even a part of the conversation, because that's not, well, obviously, if you're talking about other people, I get it.
Yeah, he's just speaking in generalities.
Yeah, that just wasn't where I was going. So I know it's late.
Yeah, but the gist of the conversation is that we have this friction and there's this demand to lead, but we can't even get to the point of conversation if we're immediately being dismissed immediately. Right. How do I lead if you are well within your agency to say I don't respect your opinion? How do I lead if I can't even get you to listen?
You're not leading the
Tashi,
person that's not listening.
Tashi,
no, not me. I'm talking about Cynthia. If Cynthia won't listen to you, you're not charged with leading Cynthia.
No. See again, that's not a collective community perspective. You just talked about the gap between the man and woman. You didn't talk about the gap between George and Cynthia or Penny and Martha. We're talking generalities. Statistically speaking, we have a huge gap that needs to be addressed. Here we are, 4 potential leaders in the community taking time on an evening like this, on a podcast that not many people are watching, talking about real issues. Somewhere between the 4 of us, in the information shared, we can find ways to connect with, to move the ball forward. It's not about what's personal for me. It's not what's personal for you. It's not about my individual characteristics or your individual characteristics. This is about the bigger picture. And so I'm giving you professionally validated, credible, evidence-based perspective here. Nothing coming from that perspective which should warrant someone's automatic dismissal, which is the experience that I have, not just in the situation that we were all part of before, but in general. This is not just particular to the Clubhouse experience. I didn't even realize you were at the Clubhouse thing. So I was just talking because I have these conversations a lot. This is the work that I do, and I'm passionate about it. And Zuri made a very accurate and astute observation on the woman's side. And your perspective that you share, which we appreciate, is an insight into what the average woman is thinking in these potential discussions. He's not leading me. I don't need an answer from him. He needs to just talk to them, and I'll talk to whoever. I ain't trying to hear, that's what I come up against a lot. And again, when I say these things,
you should come up against that.
But I do. And
you should.
No, I should not.
Yeah, you should.
Okay, so that's the point. That you're demonstrating the point.
Good. I'm glad I'm demonstrating that point. Yeah. I really am glad that I'm demonstrating that point because it needs to be demonstrated.
So we got to get the closing thoughts. Yep. But to be clear, if that's the common point, right? And if that's the accepted response, right? How in the world do you lead in that situation? I'm going to end with this, and we have to end it with this.
Right.
If I'm a general, right? Mm-hmm. And half my troops don't even want to hear what I have to say, how in the hell do I lead those troops?
Right.
I'm gonna end it there because this is gonna be a good conversation. We're gonna definitely schedule to go deeper in this conversation, Tashi. You got to be there. We're gonna expound on this conversation because this is a good place to land.
And just clarity, all those things I said were not coming from any type of disparaging piece, because I understand it comes from trauma, and our women have been traumatized, and it's just so normal that's just their way of protecting themselves because they have been hurt. They've been through a lot of abuse.
So we got to get to the good closing thoughts. This has been a great show, by the way. Always a great show. Actually, I think it's my first time being on stage with you, Tashi, on this particular show.
It is.
So, George, you always handle it the best. So I'm going to let you do the honors of the closing thoughts and how you set it up. I like the way you set it up.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's give each person 30 to 60 seconds to give one prescription on what their personal role is in improving the gap between the male and female in our community. And we'll begin with Tashi.
We're going to begin with me. You said my personal role, right?
Personal role. You feel you have one. What is your personal?
I do have one. My personal role is to continue to promote submission everywhere I go. Every opportunity I get to talk about it, I promote submission because I believe that it brings peace to me and it brings peace to my sisters if they submit. And it strengthens the Black family, therefore the Black community, therefore Black America.
Jury.
My personal role, I believe, is to teach women. It's not even about submission. I think that's natural. If it's the right person, you're going to submit, or you're supposed to do that naturally anyway. So I believe if everybody knows their role, it'll create balance. And we won't have to nothing will have to be forced. Like I say, some of us as women, if we want men to lead, learn when to be quiet. Know when to shut up. And let them lead and stop asking 50,000 questions.
So my individual contribution, and I know that it is a hell of a hill to climb, but I promote marriage. I'm a big promoter of marriage. I think that marriage is where it's a microcosm of what should be exhibited, or rather what you learn in marriage is a microcosm of what should be taught everywhere. I mean, everything is taught in that institution. It is extraordinarily powerful. And so by doing it and by promoting it, that's my individual contribution to kind of bridging this gap, so to speak.
And what I'm doing, I'm working on my 4th book, and it is titled Men Formation. And the subtitle is When Information Just Won't Be. And the purpose of the book is to challenge the reader in what being a man is. Because from a clinical perspective, our community in particular, I would say the country at large, our community in particular, is experiencing a significant identity crisis. And so my book is formed as what it takes for being a man today. And it's going to really shake up the roof. It's going to challenge people's thinking. You may feel someone insulted. Nothing in there is meant that way, but it's to push your realm of thinking. That's what you're looking for. That's my very soon.
I would definitely get a copy. So I'm gonna try to be as good as the closing as you are, George. So my jury, Tashi, the most amazing co-host, host George, and myself, Mr. Lamar Penny Finley. Y'all have a good one. And until next time, we will see you in the Black space.